Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
$1,000,000 we'll be able to pay off Pizza the Hut. Give me paw.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back. It's week 2 on the Eagle 5 build, and I'm carefully trying to keep the suspense. Over the weekend, I did flock the floor with the cardinal red flocking, and this is what it looks like. Pull the roof off, and ba-ba! Now, none of these parts are glued down. I'm just doing that for dramatic effect. But as you can see, the floor has been completely flocked, but it is obviously the wrong color. And that's the first thing we're gonna do today is correct that. We're gonna put a brown paint over all of that, and we're gonna get it ready for some of this other construction that needs to go on top of it. And yeah, it looks mottled and it doesn't look great, and that's because I didn't. Every time I've used this red flocking before, I've always painted the under plastic or the under resin. Painted that red so that I was putting red flocking on red paint. I didn't put the red paint on it. No sense doing that this time. So what you're seeing is the rather hastily flocked white resin. But all that is it doesn't matter once I put the brown paint on top of it. So let's get some of that out and we'll get ready to go. Also this weekend I started working on the little details like cutting the glass pieces or the clear parts for the pinball machine and other things. I have been asked if I was going to light up the pinball machine, and I hadn't honestly thought of it. But we'll see once we get the rest of the stuff put in whether we need that little extra bit of pizzazz in there or not. So let's get everything off the table that we don't need and concentrate on what we do. Okay, so I'm printing off a reference so I don't keep going back and forth to the computer screen. Printing off some references for some colors, and you can see what a sea of brown everything is. Also, this is what I was talking about last week about the headroom. See how these window, or right above the window, you still have more room for all of the overhead storage, which is going all the way over there. That's kind of, well, that's where the set is too tall because the actual ceiling stops about here where that light is for this curtain rod, for lack of a better term, where the curtain rod would be, is about the actual height of the inside of the RV. And I noticed this thing here, which looks suspiciously like a window, where there is no room for a window because on the outside of the ship you would see that's where the big honking engine wing which starts to attach right behind this window here. So right about there, from there back to the rear of the ship, is all engine mount. So there would be no room for a window there. But here we can see the problem that we're in as far as everything kind of being beige or tones of brown with some stuff on the table to liven it up, and then the pinball machine here and some blankets and stuff to give little pops of color here and there. This is probably the best lit version of that scene, and you can see the dark brown of the chairs and the medium brown of the carpeting, and that's the color that I'm shooting for now. Okay, the first coat is down, and as I suspected, it was going to get sucked into the fibers, and it's going to need more than one coat obviously, but this is a little bit darker than I was anticipating. This is half linoleum deck brown and half wooden deck, or half desert yellow, and I knew it was going to come out a little dark, and so I'm cool with what it looks like. I knew it was going to soak into the red and it was going to have that red cast to it. So what I need to do is let this dry, and then I can go with a progressively lighter coat on top of it, just in spots, to give you the appropriate multicolored 70 shag rug. But I'll be going with lighter coats of the desert yellow, and maybe even lighter than that if I need to, just to bring out some of the brighter spots. But it's a good base to start with. I'm just making up a little so that this is a mixture. I need to know what color it is, so I don't trust the label. But I'm ready to go with like a regular brown or a flat earth, or even a buff on top of that, just to bring that up. But first we got to let this dry. This is why I wanted to have the running start on Monday morning. So what I can do is bring out some of the wall units and start painting on some of the detail work on that, and the padded, all of these padded sections that you see here that go around all the doorways and on some of the walls, and like in here, I want to try starting off with a desert yellow on those and see if we need to even go brighter than that. But that's going to be our starting point. I'm ready to go. Those should be a little bit darker than the wall. The wall should be what I'm anticipating will be buff, because that's the lightest color that I have in that color line. So we're going to start with that next, and then we'll come back and hit that once it's had a chance to dry. Okay, here we have a tale of two walls. And the first wall is the back cabin wall. I've painted that with the buff color, and it came out too dark. I mean, it looked good in the jar. It's going to dry dark. You know that's going to happen. But it came out just looking a bit too dark. So I went and tried to mix up something different that I'm much more happy with. And this is dark yellow 2, but it is dark yellow 2 with a couple of shots of flat white in it to brighten it up some. And I think that is giving me the color that I want. It does have more of a yellow cast than this, and both of these colors are coming out a little bit brighter on camera than they are in real life. But I'm just liking this better, and I think that's the color I'm going to choose for my interior walls, and that way the accents will stand out more from them. So let me go ahead and carry this over, of course, on the back sides of these walls, and then on the inside sides of the... Also going to try it on the inside of the roof. We don't really know anything about the color of the inside of the roof. I'm presuming it to be a lighter color, but I'm going to carry it onto the insides of the of both of the main parts. Okay, here's the carpeting after the first light coat, and I used some flat earth on that. And I don't know whether it's the airbrush or the color wasn't distinct enough, but I'm not getting the pattern or the mottling that I like or that I'm looking for. So I think I'm going to let this dry for a good long time, and then I might have to come in with a brush and just dab some lighter spots on it. I think that's what it's going to take. I think the airbrush is just too it's not concentrated enough. It's too gentle. And I think what I need to do is, I'll try it out back here in the... Actually, I'll probably try it out up under the dashboard, since that'll be the least likely spot to ever be seen. I can try it out there and see if that's going to do what I want it to do. But it's brown. It's definitely not red anymore. It's the brown color that I want. It's just not giving me the 70s carpeting vibe. So we'll back up, regroup, and start again. Well, not start again, but think of something else. Okay, now that's turning, that carpeting is turning out more like I wanted it to. I went over it with a much brighter color and just really much closer with the airbrush. But I think that's the mottled look that I was looking for. So I'm doing some of that work. I've got the window frames painted in. I want to see how that rubber black looks against the interior. Now a lot of that's going to be covered up with curtains and things like that, but for right now I just want to see how the colors are massing in. And this is starting to look good. Now I'm going to let that dry and then come back and see if I need to do any more dabbing, but if not, then I am ready to start finishing up things like some of the furniture and getting those put in. I think what I'm going to do is put this wall's worth of furniture in and then attach the side wall. I don't know if I'm going to do that exactly, or whether I'm going to put the side wall on and then attach It's going to be 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I need to figure out exactly. I want to finish up painting the console or the panels on these walls, get those ready to go in. Maybe that's how I should handle it. I should put the side wall and then these standard walls on, and then fill in between it with the furniture. We'll see, and then we'll know. Alrighty, I'm just painting up some detail work on the internals here. I've got the desert yellow on all of the padding, and it particularly looks nice on the side walls there. You can really see the contrast between that and the wall color that I whipped up. There's one last bit, and that is in the chairs themselves. If you look at this picture for the banquette, you can see that that innermost one almost looks like a harvest gold or an orange, which would be in keeping with the 70s color scheme. That darker chocolate brown around the outside of the back of the banquette, and you can see how it follows down into the seat. So that's the next thing, is to make up some sort of dark brownish orange to fill in those areas with. That's just that center part in there and the seat itself, and then we'll follow that over to the bank or the bench that goes against the other wall. I don't see that happening on the pilot's chairs. The pilot's chairs seem to be that dark brown the whole way through. Alrighty, we're getting ready to close up for today, and I wanted to show where we've come. Kind of got everything pieced together a bit. This is a view you don't always see, because I normally shoot the camera towards the bunk wall, but this is what everything looks like in place so far. Got to put the table in there and the chairs up front, but the colors are starting to pop. The pinball machine obviously needs a good coat of black on it, but and I might just do that before we close up today. I need to look at how the decals are going to be covered on that, because there are some spots that I'm going to want to leave white so that the decals will show through. But we've got that, and then we have the luggage room, and that is where all of my wiring is going to terminate. But yeah, it's coming along well, I think. Putting the different colors of beige down or tans down, I think is starting to show some definition of parts here. Okay, based on this, I think one tiny bulb up there will be sufficient. I was going to put 2 bulbs in the cockpit. That tells me that I think one will do it, and then maybe 2 more back here, and not the 3 that I had planned. Maybe one, well, split this area in thirds and maybe put the 2 bulbs like that shining down. I don't want to overly light the ceiling if I don't have to. Morning everyone, it's Tuesday, time for another day's work on the Eagle 5. I've got big plans for today, but before I can get started on any of them, I have to run to the hobby shop. I need to, I went to start putting in some windows and realized all of my microcrystal clear had gone hard on me. It's a big solid glob, so I need to get something a little more liquid to work with today. I've got the PETG to make the windows, but I need something to install the windows. The big doings I've got for today are going to be including getting starting to get the side panels on the rolling chassis. A lot of the parts you don't see are in the other room because I have just sprayed them with a flat coat to get them ready to be installed. Things like the bulkhead walls, the bunks, the things like that. And I've also got another idea up my sleeve for these wings. Now, I've noticed in the model shots that when you see this area here, you can actually see through that screen, and it looks like there's some sort of cylindrical tube in there. And that's what I have chosen to emulate, if I can find it in all of this mess. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out this area here, and I'm going to put a piece of screening in there so that you can see into that area. And then I'm going to put a tube. You're not going to see the googly eye, obviously. I'm going to paint that. But it's going to be in behind there to give a little sense of detail that you'll only see from the front. But I think it's one of those details that's easy enough to put in, and I'd like to do it, so I'm gonna. So let me run to the hobby shop, and then I'll be back shortly. I also need to, once I start training these wires to go towards the back, I've determined that I need to cut little kerf cuts in each of these. If I was thinking of it beforehand, I might have drilled a hole through the side of them, but it's not really necessary that they go all the way down to the bottom. I just want to cut a kerf in it like that, put the wiring down in it, and then putty back over top of it, and that's going to help these wires run to the back, and then they're going to come up in the back room. Okay, the first momentous steps are done. I have glued the front panel into the floor. Now it's become very obvious once I did that how much of this you'll be able to see around the control panel, so I need to paint some gray down into where the floorboard hits. Alright, big developments, big developments. I've got the wiring done for, well, I've got it chased back from the headlights and the front plate to the luggage room where everything is going to come up through the floor. You can see the little line right there coming up through the floor. And when I put a battery on it, just for temporaries, when I put the battery on it, everything lights up. Now, it had been brought to my attention last week that everything was too bright. Yes, I know everything was too bright. That's why I have this handy dandy little circuit that the only Rob Schmidt sent me. He sent me a few of those, and what they are good for is stepping down. See, it's very simple. 2 wires in, 2 wires out with an arrow on the back. And you use this little adjustment wheelie right here to fine-tune the lighting, and that's exactly what I'm going to do to tune down the brake lights and the headlights. I've already tested it. It does work, and you don't get blinded by the tail lights anymore. So now we've got the wiring in the headlights, and I've chased it through the back here, and I've covered it all with shrink tubing the whole way back and ducked it into there where it's going to come up through the bottom room. Now I just need to clean out the dust from the drilling and the cutting and repaint some of that grungy grime in there, and that will be a done thing on the front panel. And the next step would be to start putting in I could either start putting in some of the furniture, which is something I've been itching to do, or I could go ahead and put this side on, or a combination of both. The thing is, once I start doing this, the working space becomes very much smaller, so I need to make sure that I am done with certain areas that will be harder to get to after I put the wall on. Alrighty, just doing some instrument painting, some lights, stuff like that. Looking at the references, I could tell one thing right off the top of my head. There are no blue or green lights. Everything in here follows the same pattern, which is either white, yellow, or red. Those are the only 3 colors of lights, which is kind of nice because you don't have to get every jar of paint out. But there's the back wall. That's going to dry, and here is the main console, and that's going to dry. Once those have dried, I can install them, and we could put that side wall on, and I think that would be a great place to finish for the day. Well, no, we've got more time. What am I saying, finish? Never mind me. Finish painting, that's what we can do, finish painting, because there's one more big job I want to do today, and that involves hogging out those spots on those wings for the mesh. Looking at the reference again, these chairs would be a fabric. They would be a fabric covered. They would not be a fine leather or Corinthian leather or anything like that. So I'm not going to try to put a high gloss on them like they were vinyl or leather seats. So we're coming down pretty close to getting ready to button up the cockpit, as it were. So we'll let those dry and take a bit of a break and then come back and start gluing some more stuff together. Okay, for my last project of the day, I'm putting these grills in. This is what I was talking about as far as cutting out that part that looks like that. Cutting out the solid part, putting a grill in here, and then I can put a shape behind it, and it'll look something like that. Morning everybody, it's Wednesday. Work is continuing on Eagle 5. Now Wednesdays have been traditionally a good work day for me. I don't know why, it just seems to be turning out that way, that Mondays and Tuesdays have their own distractions, as do Thursdays. But Wednesday seems to be a good day to get a lot of solid work done. So that's what we're going to do today. I've started the day off continuing the work I did yesterday. Last night I hogged this out and put the screen in here, and this morning I've done the same, except I have to put the screen in. I've also painted the inside of the arm or the engine support, because now that you can see the inside, of course, you don't want that to be pink. So we're going to be we've painted that at least a nice gray color. I've been working on some inserts. Don't mind the googly eyes. Some inserts that will sit in behind that. I just need to space them out so that that is sitting more in the center. Then I just have to rest it on something. But made up a couple of these, and then we'll be able to put these aside and go back and concentrate on the central body of the Winnebago. Now, yesterday I put the driver's side wall in, and that was fun. That was a big eventful thing, and I've packed it in with liberal amounts of CA to keep it from going anywhere. I'm going to kind of see how that's dried overnight. I have rubber banded the shell together to kind of keep it in place, because if something's going to go awry with it, then I want it to be, you know, if it's going to, the glue's going to set up, I want it to set up kind of, you know, like a splint, like you'd put a cast on a leg. I want it to heal in shape. So let me just mark this. It never fails. You clean up everything and you put away the one tool. I'm sure I'm done with that, and then you realize that's the one tool you need again. So in this case, it was the Sharpie. So I'm going to cut this out, and then what I did is I just took some very small flat stock and used that to kind of hold everything down. The nice thing about CA and the screening material is that it will bleed in and around the screening material and hold itself in, but it doesn't hurt. You can see I'm putting the screen in here. I just need to mark this so that I've got the right angle, or the correct angle, not a right angle, but a correct angle on the when I go to cut it. Now, you can, because this is a weird shape, you can either choose to go straight up and down with this seam, which is what I'm doing, which kind of throws the rest of the pattern off. But when you put everything in, it looks like this, and a couple drops of CA will hold it in place. Alrighty, bringing down the shell of the Winnebago from yesterday. And like I said, I had rubber bands on this all night, hoping that it would set up, and I put all the 4 pieces together. You can see that this floor needs to come down on this side. This side isn't glued in yet, but it is glued on that side, which is important, because that's the side from which everything else is kind of boxed around. You kind of have to plant. It's like planting your flag on the surface of the moon. You got to start with some constant thing by which you measure everything else off of. It's what surveyors do when they are putting that little tripod by the side of the road. They're establishing a fixed point, and then everything else is gauged off of that fixed point. So the fixed point that I've got is the back wall, or the driver's side wall, the left side wall is attached to the floor pan. So I had done the front panel first, and using that as a guide, kinda, I attached this, but this was the real thing. I actually had to go back and adjust the front panel once I had this corner set. I had to adjust it, how it fits, how it sat on the floor. So that is done. That's not moving. Now from this, I need to attach the back wall and the passenger side wall, but I am wary to do that. And here we're seeing a gap. We're seeing a big old ugliness. That is due to my my printing. That is not a fault of the part. I will be very quick to mention that. That was me saying, remember I said this last week, if there was something wrong with the part that I could fix, then I was going to fix it without having to resort to printing it again. Even though Jeffrey had redesigned or tweaked something, that's what I'm talking about, because I know that the way this is fitting is because of a piece that's rubbing underneath. Well, I can go back in and fix that. It's the floor pan. The floor pan has a little bit of a spot right here that I need to sand off. I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and then we won't have that as an issue anymore. The fit will be good, and then I can glue this back panel down. There is so much stuff to do on the inside that I don't want to put the passenger panel down right away, because it's just going to limit my ability to get in and out and fix things and wire things. So I want to make sure that it fits, but even though the ceiling is not attached, it's still going to be easier to put things in from the side. So my goal for today is to get all of those things in so that I can glue this. This will be the thing that I glue tonight and leave it. But in that is all of the furnishings for the inside. It's the 2 bulkhead walls. It's a lot. So the first thing I want to do is mark where this back wall needs to be sanded. And it is right here. It is this bit right there. So I'm going to take care of tweaking the fit of this back wall, and then we'll go from there. Alrighty, I've just cut myself a temporary, I just cut myself a temporary ceiling out of a piece of balsa wood that I had left over from the Galileo build, because I want to be able to hold these 2 walls in the same relative position, but be able to get in there without having that big roof section in the way. So this will allow me to slide this back and work on the cabin. And then when I'm done with that, I can slide it forward and kind of work on the back, and I don't lose the structure, even though this, well, that's important because this wall isn't glued in yet. But I can go ahead and put in, I have done my last and final checks on the cabin there, the stability of the wall and the squareness of it, and everybody's happy with that. If I put my little square down on the floor of the cabin, I can square the cabin wall up against it. Even though it may not be square to the rest of the world, it'll be square to the floor. So that's looking good. We know what I really need. I think I may have to run out and get one. Is I don't have a really fine tip applicator for the CA. I could use the head of a pin, but I've seen the ones that fit on the top of the glue bottle that just have a really fine applicator. That's what I need to use on the corners of these walls, because I don't want to glue the wall and then shove it in there, because it has to rub up against other parts and it's just going to spread glue and be a mess. So I'm thinking if I could get one of those tiny needle tip applicators. And lunchtime is coming up pretty soon. Maybe I can run out at lunchtime to get one of those. But I think that's what's going to be my secret weapon when it comes to gluing things in place that are already in place. But once that happens, I can put the actually, even before that happens, I can put the steering wheel and the seats in. Now the seats, there are one of each. One has the arms down, one has the arms up. The ones with the arms down are going to be Lone Star seat, and the ones with the arms up are Barf's seats, because he's a big fella, and there is a scene in the movie where he tries to get out of the seat real fast, and he's got his seatbelt on, and that's going to leave a mark. So I figure he leaves his armrests up, and then we're just going to start putting the furnishings in along the driver's side. I'm not going to put the well, there's only one bench that goes here, and then the pinball machine, which doesn't really need to get glued down. I mean, it doesn't fit against the wall. You'd have to be able to get in behind it to use the left-handed flipper, so it floats a little bit. It's not nearly as stationary as these other settings are, so I can go ahead and put the furnishings against that that driver's side wall. That's the bunks, the stove, the banquette, and there was probably meant to be a sink in here somewhere, and I'll bet you it was next to the stove, but it was never sculpted in, nor is there a bathroom sculpted in. I mean, this is a movie set. It's not an actual RV. And the actual RV, the bedroom, which was probably way here in the back. See, I can move that all the way forward. The bedroom that would be back here, that's my battery / wiring room, and I'm going to try to cover everything I need to cover with fake luggage, because I have to fit a battery in here at some point. That's going to take up a good amount of room. Actually, I can lay on its side and fit. I can lay a battery there and cover that with a suitcase. But I've got to get to the rest of this wiring, and plus I haven't even wired in the engines yet. So there's plenty of work to do. My goal for this week, and I'll go ahead and state it now, because once I put it out into the world, I feel more obligated to make it come true. My goal is to get all of this done to the point of all of the construction, have the wings on and everything. And then that leaves next week for final top coats and decals, which I haven't even started yet. I'm looking forward to doing that, because it's going to be on the laser printer rather than the ink toner, because anybody who's watched my videos for the longest time will know I have a deathly allergy to the spray, the setting spray that you use for laser or for inkjet decals. You don't need that setting spray with laser. That's what I've been told. You don't need the setting spray. Therefore, I should be able to sidestep that allergic reaction. So that's, fingers crossed, that's what we're hoping for. Right, I'm back from the hobby shop, and I've done my gluing. These are the things I was talking about. These are the tips that go on the CA to help you get down into the cracks and crevasses. So the front wall is glued in only on the driver's side. The back wall is glued in only on the driver's side. The steering wheel and both of the seats are glued in. So cockpit is done with the exception of the window frame. I've got to do this window. I'm going to do that after I take that whole wall off. That is now that these walls are in and drying, I'm going to let that sit for a bit, and then I can take this entire wall off and finish the interior bits that I want to finish. I have to decide whether to put this on now or wait and put both of them on. I think if I put both of them on fairly close to each other, then I can have the same epoxy out and the same glue and all that. But it'll also help keep them, keep the ship balanced. If I do this before I glue this wall on, everything's just going to want to keep falling over. So we're not going to do that. Having some fun starting with the interior details. Having just did a quick rewatch of the relevant scenes in the movie. And I had the console here, the cooktop slash sink, I guess, console. I had that painted completely wrong. I had it painted in the same shades of the desert yellows and whatnot and buffs, and it shouldn't have been. It should have been the old white. So I lightened it up, and then I went over it with a little bit of earth wash and the panel accent lining. I think the earth wash is going to get a lot of use on this build because it is the perfect color for aging everything. This is going to be painted an off-white, either an insignia white or a racing white from Tamiya, and then we're going to do the brown. Well, and then we're going to decal it, and then we're going to do the browns and the earth colors and the rusts and that kind of stuff. And that's going to be a lot of this earth engine soot, brown engine soot and earth wash. That's going to get a lot of use. These are both Mecha colors from Vallejo, but I have a feeling those are going to get a lot of use in the upcomings. And I also did the same thing on the table. I tried to put a coffee stain, a coffee mug stain. So that's what that is. That's intentional. So just a little zzz of dust of high pressure there, just to give me a mug stain. Now I've got in my little bag, a little cup of tricks here, I've got some other types of details to go on, like there's Barf's fire hydrant, but there is lots of 6 packs of beer and whatnot, some liquid shorts, and we do have a dog bowl to go, the barf bowl to go here on the table. So we'll end up putting all that. This is the kind of detailing stuff we're going to do next week. But let me get, now that those walls have had a good proper curing time, I'm going to take the side wall off and see what kind of trouble I can get into putting things into the driver's side wall. And now with that wall off, we could see a nice cross section of everything, and you can see what I was talking about as far as the headroom there contrasted with the headroom here. You'd see lovely Princess Vespa head comes to about the same height as the top of the windows, and how much more there is above the top of the windows. That ain't happening in the real world. So now I think the next step is to go ahead and put this dash in here, put the sink in there, or the stove. And in the movie there's like a blender and a bunch of other stuff happening there. There's a first aid box goes right there. I might have to do something for that. I'm going to make up some detail. I don't know exactly what goes on this wall, but we'll find out. And then start putting in the banquette and the bunks right there. Alrighty, the insides are really starting to shape up now. I think what I need to do is take some epoxy sculpt and sculpt in some blankets and pillows, just some stuff to be hanging out around the bunk beds there. And that's probably easier to do with epoxy sculpt than it would be to try to cut it out of something stiffer. And then there's that magazine rack, this kind of thing, that one right there. I have room to hang that on the ceiling. Of course, there's no window there because there's a big honking wing support in the way. And I may see if I can do something about that lamp with the red scarf hanging off of it, just for something to go on that back wall underneath the overhead storage bin. And of course, start thinking about the passenger wall. We've got the Space Invaders pinball machine that goes there, and what looks like a second little bunkette or second set of seats to go there. And that's all I've got for this wall. Of course, we've got windows and a door on this side. But yeah, lots of good progress today. And we also start to thinking about what's going in the back room. Now, obviously, this is where my wiring is going to go, but in the film, There's a work table here and a pegboard on this wall and another half table and some chairs there. This is the room, of course, that Dot Matrix and the Princess Vespa come up through, and they're kind of sequestered back here. It's weird because at various times there's either a solid door here or curtains. And sometimes it's a solid door with curtains, and that makes no sense at all, but I know dramatically they want to be able to open the door and see each other for the first time rather than swishing through some curtains. So I don't think I'm going to put curtains here or here, even though a lot of the movie is spent with this closed off with curtains on the front. I just want to be able to have the sight lines going through there. I'm going to think about putting some sort of curtain over the side windows, but not necessarily on the front and back windows. There's also a set of blinds and some curtains that go over this back window. This is where the Mog on Board sign is, and it's actually, they look like Venetian blinds almost going over this, and I don't think there's a good way to replicate that in scale, so we're going to have to see what we do there in order just to kind of camouflage what's going on in this room, because it's not going to be anything like what's going on in the movie. Okay, so big news. I've got all of the lights in. I've got them wired to this board, which will allow me to dial the brightness where I want it. I've got it down fairly low. As you can see, I can turn it up and make it brighter. You can tell more on these tail lights. Let me see if I can do this without the overhead. It's going to plunge me into total darkness here. It's a very tiny adjuster. See, if I turn that up, you can see it going up. Like I said, and there, down to almost nothing. I don't want to have nothing there. I want to have some light. So I think right about there. It's still dim, but it's still bright. I mean, it's still bright, but it's not the brightest it could be. Okay, I'm calling it for today. Got a lot of good work done. Like I said, this was a Wednesday, and I get a lot of good work done. I got so much work done. It was one of those days where I looked up and realized what time it was. Maybe not a lot to show for it, but we got all of the these interior pieces in today. We got a lot of progress on the wiring. Doesn't look like it, but we did. We got of course, we've got the stuff in the passenger or in the cabin done. So yeah, a lot of good progress today. I've started fitting the engines to see how they're going to go. I think there's one last thing. There's one last thing I can do today, and that would be to finish the day how I started, with these cutouts of the wings and the tanks that go in them. I think I just need to make a little spacer so that I can do this in camera, Lou. I'm getting better. Hopefully I'm getting better. But to fit this in a in behind there, I think all I need to do is get a little block of styrene and just set this up on it so that it kind of looks like that from the front. Hey everybody, it's Thursday. It's the gateway to the weekend. Yay! And today I desperately want to close up the other side of the RV. I want to close this up. So much so that I almost made a really stupid mistake yesterday. I almost started to close that up, and then I realized, no, you idiot. It's going to be so much easier for you to go ahead and make the windows and get them put in if you do that before you close up both sides. And I agreed with myself, because I always say the right thing to myself. And I'm sure you do as well. I need to cut up some of this PETG and make these windows and get them set in place, and then I can close this up. So that's the goal for today. Lou does windows today, so it's not going to be really thrilling work, but it's work that's got to get done. So once that happens, we can do the big showy thing of closing this side up. Righty, now outside of the windshield, which is its own animal, the side windows are all done. Now the microcrystal clear looks mighty sloppy. It does not look very clear. But this is drying in very nicely, and I'll be able to clean off the bits once they do dry more completely. But that gets me my side windows. There's a little bit of work I want to do on Barf's bunk before I put Lone Star's bunk on top of it. It's going to be easier to like sculpt up a throw and a pillow and stuff that in there now than it would be if I waited. So that's next. I've got the windshield on. I mean, while I've got all these tools and everything ready, I probably should just go ahead and finish the glazing, as it were, on the rest of them. Now this back window I've already got cut, but I don't have it pasted in place yet. So let me go ahead and do that, and then we'll be ready for the next big steps. Alright, I've just finished up the last of the glazing, and my eyes are they are next. They are glazed over. Of course, this will clean up. This will dry nicer, but this is the windshield insert. And then whatever needs to be repainted will be. I need to leave that down, let it dry. Okay, kids, it's time for something monumentous, something momental, something really important. I'm going to go ahead and stick down the passenger side wall. Everything is lining up beautifully here. We'll see about getting these wheels to spin at some point in the future. There is one adjustment that I need to make, which is why I have the clamp and that brass bar out here. I need to pull the floor down. It's got a little bit of a warp to it this way, or else the wall has a warp that way, but this is not making a nice clean edge. So what I'm going to do is put a clamp on it and bring it down. But this is matching perfectly. This is matching perfectly, and all along the bottom it's matching. So very happy with all of that. What I want to do is go ahead and put a bead of 1 minute epoxy all along this bottom, pull it in, glue it down, and then once that's setting up, I can go along the inside and hit it with hit these seams with that CA on the really fine needle applicator, and wonderful things will happen. Okay, it's belted, banded, and bruised, but it is together, and we're going to let the epoxy set for a good little bit, and then we'll go into the inside and start doing the reinforcing from there with the CA. But for right now, everything is being held just lovely. I got the temporary ceiling back in just to hold the roof together, to hold that square rather. And good, we're at the sitting and waiting stage. Doing a bit of late afternoon work on the Eagle, and wanted to get these magnets in place. This is what's going to hold the roof down. Now that I've got both of these walls in place and the braces are off of this wall, so I drilled out for the first magnets that I sunk down into the rail here, and then I put the second magnet on top of them, put a little dot of white paint on top of each of those magnets, pressed the roof down in place, and now I've got marks that tell me where to drill out to put the magnets. So we'll do that next, and we'll get this piece ready to go. I'm debating with myself tonight, because nobody else will listen, about whether I want to try to get the engines on, the wings on. It is so nasty and crummy and raw and rainy outside that I can't really put a good coat of primer on them. I've sprayed them gray in here with the gray paint, but it's not the same as getting a nice white primer on them. So I'm debating whether or not I can step out on the back porch, because I really want to get a coat of primer on them before I attach them. So that's where my quandary is. So I'm going to do this to take my mind off of that problem and see if a solution presents itself. Okay, for the last deal of the day, I want to get these wings on, and of course the first one's going to be the easiest because we've got a nice flat bottom here. We can just rest this. When it comes time to put the other one on, it's like painting the eyes of a person versus a cyclops. It's always easy to do the first one. It's making the second one match that's the problem. Same thing happens with nacelles on your given enterprise. It is easy to put the first nacelle on. It is somewhat more difficult by a factor of 1,000,000 to put the second one on. So we're going to put the first one on. This is the good wall. This is the wall that everything else was built off of. So we're going to put it on this wall, and then once this has set up, and I'm talking about hours from now, we'll put the second one on. It took a bit of doing, but this is where we're at tonight. The top is not glued down. The top will never be glued down. It is stuck down by magnets, but it's holding everything. It's helping holding everything in place. And we've got tons of epoxy just slathered inside these supports. I've checked, double checked, and triple checked to make sure that everything is looking nice and straight and square and even. And then I've got the rubber bands kind of holding everything tight. It won't hurt me to put another couple bands on it, but we are good to go. We're in a good place to let this set overnight. I'm going to put one more set of I just put one more set of rubber bands on there to kind of hold everything in. But yay! Well, good morning, everybody. It's Friday. It's the last work day of the week. And as you can see, great strides have been made on the Eagle 5 since you last saw it. Yes, the wings are on. The wiring is more or less together. All I need to do is to put a 9-volt to that and a switch, and we're good to go. You see, I can do this by hand, and let me see if I can get everything. Yep, I do it by hand. And make sure I'm on camera when it happens. I don't know if you can see any of it because my hand is blocking anything. There we go. Now you can see the wing tips and maybe the let's just do this. Oh, stop. Anyway, lighting's working. Got to put a switch on that. The next step is going to be to do the lighting for the ceiling. So I've started preparing that. That needs to be not only portable but detachable. So yesterday I put magnets in along the edge here so that this would sit down with a magnet on it to hold it in place. And I was thinking either this little switchy battery thing would go here and run non-resisted LEDs. Now here's a slight diversion from maybe what Phil has done on his and what other people who build this might do. Depending on how bright the lighting is going to be in here, I'm debating whether or not to put the screening in behind the windows, because part of me wants to be able to see in there, see in there clearly. So I'm thinking if I'm going to put any curtains in at all, they're all going to be open. So it's going to be you might see some curtains on the edge of the window, but not they would be open. That's what I'm trying to say in a long roundabout way, so that when that is on and the lights are on, you can see what's going on inside there. So that Phil had sent me some beautiful, really fine copper mesh screening to put in there. Sorry, Phil, I don't think I'm going to use it because I certainly will treasure it and hold on to it for another project. But I think I want to be able to enjoy the view through the open windows, and that's a significant difference from what I was planning. I've got something that I want to use for the curtains, but even them, I may just put like a little strip down the side of each open window and not a full set of curtains. So the first thing I did this morning was to wire in the lighting together. I put the wings on last night, kind of let everything cure overnight, so everything is on nice and securely, but the wiring is obviously sticking out. It needs to be neatened up, and a battery needs to be installed, pushed down in there and made neat. And then I'll probably make another workbench to go over top to hide the wiring. But I do need to be able to access the battery, to change the battery, and to switch it off and on. And I prefer having the switch inside there because it's no great pain to pull the top off, hit a switch, put the top back on, rather than having a switch sticking out of the ship somewhere. So that's where we're at on that. Now the only window that I might block, and Phil, I might still use some screening for this, is the back window. I have to put the little Mog on board sign on the window, but if you look straight in, you might be able to see all, depending on how neat I can make this back room. I may want to find some way to either tint this glass or cover it up so that you don't see all the messy wiring from the outside. But that's pretty much where we're at. I painted this a white coat just because I want the ceiling to be white. This is a primer coat. I need to paint over top of it, but I think once this dries, I need to put the lighting that's going to happen on there. Alrighty, we're doing the first test of the interior lighting, and it's coming off awfully yellow. I know that, but this is 3, and you can see the light leaks here that need to be fixed. This is 3 cool, warm white LEDs on the 3-volt circuit, but they are resisted. So I kind of like the fact that they're resisted. They're coming off kind of dim. This is the 3 bulbs, and I'm using just this little battery pack here at the back. I like the neatness of it. It's got its own switch. It's got like I can open up the compartment and change the batteries. I like that. I would neaten up all of that wiring, but that's warm whites. So let me try the same setup with cool whites to see if I like it any better. Okay, this is the cool whites, and it comes off as a bit blue on the video, but I'm having a Goldilocks moment now because this is too cold. The first ones were too warm, this is too cold. So you know what's coming next. I hear you saying it. Yes, I'm going to try a combination. I might leave the blue one or the cool one up here and swap out the warm in the back and see if that gives me a better balance. Well, as they used to say, winner, winner, chicken dinner. I think this'll do. Now I also moved that first bulb further back so it's more over the banquette, and I think that's giving me the result I'm looking for. And this one is, I think it may be further back against the wall. I might move that a little bit further forward, but I have to make sure it doesn't conflict with that big old monitor that's going right here. Remember, there's a big screen that happens right there, so I have to make sure that I'm not in the way of that. But I think the blue light, or I keep saying blue, the cool white in the cockpit, and then the warmer in the back. I think that's the answer we're looking for. All right, it's closing time on Friday afternoon, so it's time for me to show my work and then get ready to take a couple days off. So here we have all of the light. I'll turn over the headlights off. We have the lights on. You can see them there. We have the wing tips blinking. You can see there. You can see from the reflection of my hand that the tail lights are on. I could spin this around if I wanted to, like that. Boom. The engines are lit. Now this is all running off a 9-volt battery, and everybody's happy with that. That's doing 1 circuit's worth of work. This is the ceiling circuit, and it's got 2 little 9-volt or 2 little 3-volt batteries tucked in there like this, and when you put it in and the magnets hold everything in place. There's something pinching? Is there something pinching? Shouldn't be anything pinching. Let's see why that's not laying as flat as it should. Why isn't that laying flat? It is, it just needs to be pushed down a bit. Now it's rocking right there. Where is that? Oh, I bet you it's rocking on that. Yeah. I made that a little long. So we can cut a notch in the top of the ceiling to take care, or the top of that wall to take care of that. Yeah, okay, we'll take care of that. But when you put the lights down on top of the rest of the Eagle 5, you can see inside. And that's why I want to keep those windows clean, so that you can see inside. And that's how we're going to finish off the week. I don't know about you, but I could use a drink. Got a lot done. Got a lot done this week. Very happy with that. Next week, of course, comes the painting and the decaling and all the finishing work that will finish this up. I've got a lot of little niggly details to put inside to kind of dress up the interior, so to speak. So until then, y'all be good, be safe, be smart, be good to each other, be good to yourself, and we'll see you back here next week.
Now you see that evil will always triumph, because good is dumb.